guys, welcome back. So today I've got my trusty notebook and I'm going to be sharing with you guys my favorite books from 2020, not necessarily 2020 releases, just the favorites that I read. And just the same as last year, I didn't have a ton that broke that 5-star mark, that 5-star standard that I have. But there were the top 2, which I'll say at the end of the video. And then these other ones are all like 4.5s or 4.75, so really high still. Okay, I don't really have a good place to start. I'll just start anywhere. I finished the Farseer trilogy with Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb. It's an adult high fantasy. It kind of has that stereotypical fantasy setting. But this young boy, in the first book, this young boy, Fitz, he is abandoned at his biological father's castle, because his biological father is the prince, and he is the illegitimate son of the prince, and he just gets abandoned there, and so the royal family has to decide what to do with him. And then there are some, obviously, magical elements, and then so each book follows him as he grows up, and yeah, it's really good. So continuing on with that, I skipped the Live Ship Trader trilogy, which is supposed to come next, and then I continued on Fitz's story with the Tawny Man trilogy, starting with Fool's Errand. That one has a lot more to do, so obviously now Fitz is an adult and he's on his own, and he's been through all this stuff from the first trilogy, and now he's with the Fool, and oh, he's not actually with him, but it's about the Fitz and the Fool. So yeah, they have their own adventures, and I really like that one. I also read Dry by Neal Shusterman. I read the Scythe trilogy last year, and I enjoyed the first 2 books of that series, so I wanted to give Neal Shusterman a try with another book. And this one was kind of like it's not a post-apocalyptic or anything, but it's futuristic in that it just looks into the future where, let's say, there was a massive drought over, I think this one is basically over the United States. I don't know that they talk about the world or anything, but yeah, what would life become if water became a currency, you know? Like the lengths that people will go for a drop of water or a bottle of water, and how that will all of a sudden change everyone's priorities, and how like people are, it's just amazing. And I really liked that take on it. It's told through the perspective of a teenager, and then how he ends up getting separated from his family, and then he slowly finds other people that they kind of build a group together and try to survive. Some maybe have ulterior motives, you never know. Everybody wants water. So I also read Cry of the Raven by Morgan L. Busey. This one is book 3 in the Ravenwood saga, which I gave the first 2 5-star. I give this one 4.5 stars, so not as great, but still really, really excellent. So this series follows the House of Ravenwood, and they are dreamwalkers, so they can actually like step into your dream, and they can affect what you're dreaming. They can affect you physically as a result of what they do in your dream. So yeah, there's a lot that happens throughout the trilogy, and this is the kind of culmination of all of that. The Knights of Eritrea series by Chuck Black, I'm still not quite done. I think I have just 2 books left of that series, and then I'll be done. But this one was highly recommended by Celestria, and I'm really glad that I found out about these because they're really, really good. They are Christian, YA, older middle grade, and they just kind of, it's hard to explain. Sometimes it's hard to explain a Christian fiction when they dip into the spiritual world, because the spiritual world is real, but we don't necessarily have like visuals of the spirit world, you know what I mean? I don't know. Anyway, so it just follows each book follows a different knight that is trying to spread the word of the prince's coming, and there's a lot of evil that tries to infiltrate different towns, and yeah, it's really good. I recommend those. I also really enjoyed the Incarceron series. It's just Incarceron and Safik, and those are both really good science fiction, older middle grade YA. And that one follows two perspectives: a boy in Incarceron, which is a prison. So there's a boy in prison, and then a girl who is the daughter of the warden. Nobody knows how to get to this prison. Nobody knows where it is. Nobody ever escapes the prison or gets released from prison. It's this like very mysterious thing that people don't really know anything about. And then so the daughter of the warden and this guy from prison, they somehow get a connection. It is science fiction fantasy. And yeah, they discover things that they didn't know were reality. So that one's really interesting. I like that one. A reread was Texas Angel by Judith Pella. This one, I really enjoyed it. Again, I hadn't read it since I was much younger, and it is very good. It deals with a lot of hard topics, gritty topics. A woman, this is back in like the 1800s, so a woman, she's freshly married, she just had a baby. Her husband is from a more well-to-do family. Then they discover that she is 1/8 African American, I believe. So her family, or her married-in family, disowns her. The husband divorces her and abandons the baby, and they actually send her to the slave owner that once owned her mother. She doesn't know her parents or her mom, but this is apparently the slave owner that had owned her mother, and so now she's essentially being put into slavery again, and how difficult that is, and all the horrible things she has to go through. And then on the flip side, we're also following this man and his wife and kids that are from a very comfortable society, and he feels God's calling to preach in the desolate Texas lands where not very many people live, and so he drags his family. They're not very willing, so they don't really want to be doing this, but he drags them anyway. And the conflicts that arise in that marriage and in that family, and then somehow this family and this Elise, her name is, main girl, how they get connected, and then what happens from there. So very good book. A lot of trigger warnings, I would say, though. I also read Anomaly, which is another science fiction YA Christian by Krista McGee. This one, I've been calling this one the Christian version of The Island, the movie. So if you've seen that movie, you kind of have an idea of what it's about. So I really like that one. Also, I read A Curse So Dark and Lonely, and then A Heart So Fierce and Broken, and those were really good. They start off the series as a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and then it branches off to its own story from there. Really like that one, or that series, I should say. The Nevermoor Wondersmith Holopox trilogy I really enjoyed by Jessica Townsend. The third book, again, not as great as the first two, but still solid. Yeah, that one's a middle grade fantasy where this young girl, Morrigan, she is considered, I forget, a cursed child, maybe? I forget what she's considered in the very first book. but because she was born on this one day of the year, that's apparently a bad day. And so because she was born on that day, she is held responsible for everyone in the community's trials. So if something happens, if you stub your toe, if your car breaks down, whatever, it's probably Morrigan's fault. So she's constantly fighting low self-esteem and feeling like worthless and a burden to her family. And then it's said that on her 12th birthday, she's supposed to, anyone born on that day, on their 12th birthday, they die. Her 12th birthday comes around, and she is saved by some stranger who whisks her away, and then magical world. So yes, yeah, you guys should try that one out. Although it is marketed as a middle grade series, I would not consider it, I wouldn't really be comfortable letting young kids read it, because there are a lot of things that they briefly like talk about, or they talk about in depth. There's a lot of things that I don't know are that healthy for children to be reading about. Yeah, so I liked it as an adult, but take from that what you will. I also started and completed The False Prince, which is the Ascendant series by Jennifer A. Nielsen. This is a 5-book series. Really, really liked it. If I read a series, I kind of lump it as one. So I'm not necessarily saying that all 5 books are in my favorites, but that the series as a whole is in my favorites. So that one starts off with a young boy, Sage, who is an orphan, and he lives in an orphanage with other young boys. I think it's a home for boys. And anyway, one day this man comes around and he decides to adopt 5 of them, and he takes them away, and his motives for adopting them are not very pure, because he wants to overtake the kingdom, and he wants to train up one of these boys to pass as the long lost prince of the kingdom, so that he can essentially rule through that kid, right? So it's very dangerous for the boys, and yeah, it's a very good series. I would recommend it. The last one is another series. It's the Queen of Hearts trilogy by Colleen Oakes. This one is very, very high on my list. I really, really enjoyed this whole series. The way that she reinvented the classic Alice in Wonderland characters was so neat, and then the story I really enjoyed it. And then at the very, very end, there are some twists that I didn't see coming, and I really enjoyed it too. So yeah, highly recommend. Those are my favorites. I will say that I have 2 nonfiction as well that I'd like to mention, and they are It's Not Supposed to Be This Way by Lisa TerKeurst. That one was really excellent, as well as You're Not Enough by Allie Beth Stuckey. So those are in general my favorites. And then when you want to get to the top 2 fiction of the year, number 2 would be The Skin Map by Stephen Lawhead, and I would say the whole Bright Empires. There's a series of 5. And that series was something else. It's time travel. It is just, I just can't even describe it. It's just really good, and it's written by a Christian author, so there are some faith elements sprinkled in there, and I really, really, really liked it. It is number 2 from 2020. And number 1 is, everyone knows who's been on my channel for a while. I talk about it. I've been talking about it since I read it, basically. And that is The Princess and the Goblin by George MacDonald. It's a very old classic, children's classic. I can't believe I've never even heard of it before. It's so, so good. I love it. So you guys should all get your hands on The Princess and the Goblin, because big thumbs up. Also, the audiobook. because the voices that the narrator does for like the goblins especially are hilarious. So yeah, get your hands on that one. So those are my favorites. I don't even know how many there were. Just wanted to mention the favorite reads that I had from 2020. Let me know if you've read any of these. Let me know also what your favorites from 2020 were, so that maybe I can try them out in 2021 and maybe we'll have some similar tastes. We'll see. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!